Hi guys, Gina Phillips here. I promised you guys I would do a brief decode and catch you all up on the communications that were coming out at the inauguration. Pretty surprising how many people were wearing purple that day, huh? A lot of ex-presidents and presidents' wives and people all dressed in purple. And it does have significance. Um, so for those who have not seen my original interview with Chris McDonald on the Mech Files, where I break down what the purple color revolution is. You may remember that in 2016, the first time we ever saw anybody in politics wearing this purple was when Hillary and Bill came out for the concession speech at 2016, and Hillary has the purple lapel and shirt, Bill has the purple tie. That was an activation of what the people that I work with, the mind control victims that I deprogram, have dubbed Into the World program. So Purple is a very, very huge program, the Purple Into the World program, that has many sub-programs in it. That was activated in 2016. It has 2 stages. So we've seen the first 4 years. It was activated by Hillary Clinton at the concession speech. She thought she was coming in as president, but they went on and activated it anyway. Again, check my website out at gina-phillips.com. See that first interview if you want more background information. So it's 4 years after activation. That's stage 1. Activation of the Purple program, Into the World program. And I believe we're seeing the beginning of the activation of stage 2. As we saw in the inauguration, and I'll get into the details of that in just a second. So you notice that it changed from just the lapels and the shirt to the women dressed in complete purple all the way. It's like we're going to stage 2. It's all purple. And I'll tell you more what that means in a second. I do want to clarify before I get into it. I often get people who maybe don't have the background of what I'm doing. And so people will say, well, purple doesn't mean all that negative stuff. Purple means royalty in the Bible. And it totally does. Like, I totally believe and get the symbolism in the Bible of all of the redemptive symbols. But that's not what I'm doing, because I have deprogrammed for years survivors of ritual abuse, mind control, people who were victims of programming from the cabal, government people, preschools and stuff. I've been able to see this language, this code that they have, and I don't understand it all, don't claim to understand it all, but some of the basics I do. So I'm decoding them. I'm saying what's happening in the enemy's camp. I'm not saying this has to happen. I believe in the power of prayer, but just wanting to clarify for those folks. This is what it symbolized for them. You guys will remember I said that there's like a 3-tier system, just for the sake of, I use this just for the sake of helping you guys understand. The top world leaders that are very visible, we call them tier 1. So they're people like the president and the Pope and government, very visible world leaders. We call them tier 1. That's what was displayed in comms in the inauguration. All the purple was that tier 1 going out of a comm. And we expect that now that they have signaled what's to take place, tier 2 picks up on of the communications, picks up on that, what they saw in tier 1, and that will be your media, your music industry, movie industry, commercials, and TV. They will then send that out to the masses, and you'll begin various rabbit trails of programming activated on more regional and local levels. And that's how programming is activated. So that background information for newcomers, I'm going to begin and talk about what we saw. So we saw the females dressed in complete purple. I believe Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, all in purple. So let's talk about Kamala for a minute. I'm going to read from an article out of Town and Country. It took like maybe an hour after the inauguration, and you already see online articles commenting about how people were dressed. And they want that. Remember, they're trying to activate something. They want to get information out in every way. If you didn't watch the inauguration, well, then maybe you're going to read about it. So they're just sort of blanketing all the media with what's going on. So Kamala is wearing all purple. She's wearing pearls. That's significant. We also saw pearls around the neckline if you look at Jill Biden as well, even though she was wearing a different color. So there's this article in Town and Country from the inauguration day on the 20th, and the headline says, Kamala's pearls hold a deep significance. The vice president is sending a message with her jewelry. And she is. And the article goes on to say, pearls are the symbol of Kamala's sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha. Alpha Kappa Alpha is the first African-American Greek letter sorority. It talks about in the article that the founders of this sorority are called the 20 Pearls. And each member of this particular sorority, when they pledge, and are accepted, they get a badge with 20 pearls on their badge. And Kamala Harris calls her sorority her secret weapon. I don't know what that means, but that's pretty interesting. So we see here that pearls are an identifier with Kamala Harris. So, it's not just that she wore them that day. She represents Pearl. She identifies strongly with Alpha Kappa Alpha, her sorority. Pearls link her back to that. And then in the article, it says, pearls have been tied to our notion of femininity since ancient times. In ancient Greece, the goddess Venus was said to have been born from the sea and was often depicted emerging from a clamshell. Well, they made a mistake right there. Venus is actually a Roman goddess and not a Greek goddess, but it doesn't really matter. So, I saw other articles that I'm not going to quote where they were saying that people in the government were wearing purple because it represented unity, that when you have the red of Trump and the blue of the Democratic Party merging together, it forms purple, and that's unity. And I want you guys to know that's a code for programming. They always have the cover story for what it means, and it means that in programming as well. You may have seen in previous videos that I've told you when a child is first programmed, they want to split and divide the mind so that you have the right brain and the left brain. And one side of the brain is color-coded red and one is blue. And they don't want both sides of the brain communicating to one another fully. It's a way of gaining control and putting in programming. And so people up until this point in time, going back at least 50 years, maybe longer, have had red and blue programming, and they've been told don't ever bring the two parts of the mind together to make purple. It's been a no-no. It's been and that happens when you get deprogrammed. You do have a flooding of purple. They've used a flooding of these trauma purple memories to keep people from having their mind come together. But they're beginning the very, very early stages right now of having the mind come together to activate end of the world programming purple, which some of you guys have heard of me speak of flooding and Ragnarok, and I hope I can explain this in a way that's understandable. It's not fully gone out yet, but they're saying let's line it up in this second stage of programming. It's going to cause the mind to come together and flood what's in both left and right, both blue and red brain. So this is true in the articles going out. It does mean unity, but it's not talking about the people. It's talking about the programmed people. Red and blue uniting to become the purple program. So I want to say too that Kamala Harris and Lady Gaga both represent Venus. It was said that Kamala symbolized Venus with the pearls and the outfit. But Lady Gaga does also. It's no coincidence that she sang and is a part of this. So note that Kamala has an all purple outfit on and she's wearing pearls, and Lady Gaga's wearing red and blue outfit and the dove. So remember, the brain of a young, say Kamala's going to represent the older and the elder Venus, or Aphrodite. We'll talk about that in a minute. And Gaga, the younger. So in the younger, with Gaga, you got the red and blue dress. And Kamala, it's turned all purple in the maturity in the older. So let's talk about Venus a minute, and maybe this will make more sense. So Venus is a Roman goddess, even though the article said it's Greek. But she has her counterpart in other cultures. Like, remember, Venus, she is one of the power principalities, dominions. She's a big guy. She's a goddess that operates in the second heaven. But she's also known because she's been worshipped since antiquity. Different cultures call her a different name, but it's the same entity. Venus, in Rome, she's called Venus. And in the Greek culture, she's called Aphrodite. And you'll hear me call her Aphrodite from here on out, because that suits the purposes that of the comms better. But it's the same entity. She's called Astarte in Phoenician, and Isis in Egyptian, and Ishtar in the Semitic culture. She's called in the ancient Sumerian culture Inanna, which is also Queen of Heaven. All of those are Venus. All of those are Aphrodite. Same entity, just known by a different name in a different culture. I also want to throw in there that she is our Lady Liberty. So I'm going to call Venus from here on out Aphrodite. Same entity. She's our Lady Liberty. You know, we're made to believe Lady Liberty represents freedom, you know, constitutional freedom for all the people that come here. No, that's a great big French-made goddess standing up there in the harbor, overlooking the harbor. And we call her Lady Liberty, but she is really Venus. She is really Aphrodite. She is really Astarte. And the liberty that, if I want you can do a deep dive and look her up and see who she is. The liberty that she represents is sexual liberty. Sexual, the whole, she's the patron of prostitutes, the sacred prostitution where you have ritual prostitutes. Our Lady Liberty represents sexual freedom. Freedom to have sex anyway, anywhere, any kind. So that's a big idol standing up there, just so you know. And so what Aphrodite, what Lady Liberty represents, she's associated with sexual desire and passion and procreation. And the symbols of this goddess are doves and pearls. She has other symbols, but that's why you're seeing pearls around the neck of Kamala Harris. That's why you're seeing the dove, the huge dove on Lady Gaga. If you look at Jill Biden, her dress neckline had pearls. Is that they are representing that entity, Aphrodite. So according to Plato, there's two different forms of Aphrodite. And I believe that's what Kamala and Gaga represents, those two different forms of Aphrodite. So you have the elder form of Aphrodite, and she is the heavenly, the spiritual, the God entity, and she's called Aphrodite Urania. And so that's what Kamala Harris represents. She's the elder. She is the elder Aphrodite, Aphrodite Urania. And then the younger form of Aphrodite is the earthly, the more common form of Aphrodite, and she's called Aphrodite Pandemos. And that's the common form, the common man. So you've got the younger Gaga. She is just like a young, newly programmed child. They have their mind split into the red and the blue at the very beginning. You've got Gaga wearing the red and blue dress with the dove, showing she's still Aphrodite. And in the beginning programs, you have the mind split, and she's the younger. And she also is to the common man. She represents the commoner's form of Aphrodite. Okay, but we're moving into the maturity of red and blue coming together to form purple. And so you have Kamala wearing all purple. She represents the elderly, mature form of Aphrodite, Aphrodite Urania. She also represents the God, the spiritual form. And so she's giving the calm, begin to blend together the red and the blue to form purple in your programming, activating that. I hope this makes sense. I also want to say that Kamala Harris, she is sending out comms to the elite survivors of ritual abuse, mind control. People are ranked according to their bloodline and their royalty, their intelligence. People who are programmed call the people that we've seen so far out on the streets in like the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa, the rioting, they call them, I don't call them that because I value all people, but they call them pawns or the commoners. And then you have the elitists who have higher mental processing speed, so they have a higher role, more of a leadership role, and we're going to call them the elite. So Kamala is appealing to them. She is appealing to them saying, all right, let's begin the beginning stages of turning the whole system purple, bringing together your, it's like putting a key in a lock. This is a really significant event of turning to those who looked at Kamala, or those who also would have looked to Hillary Clinton. In another video, I'm going to talk about Hillary. It's saying, let's turn that key in the lock and start activating red and blue, blending together of your programming to activate second stage into the world program. Gaga represents the message to the more common people, the average Joes. Okay, and she did not activate turn purple yet, only the leadership. Okay, the leadership is going to have some very specific roles to play in the future. Gaga's still red and blue, but she's still standing for Aphrodite. So they've not told the commoners, and I hate using that word, but that's what, it's the commoner Aphrodite, Aphrodite Pandemos. They're staying still with the mind split red and blue, but we're letting you know Aphrodite's rising. Aphrodite is what you're dealing with here. Now again, so we have this dichotomy, or that's maybe not the word I'm looking for. We have this Kamala and Gaga, the spiritual goddess Aphrodite, Urania, the commoners, Aphrodite Pandemos, and Gaga. Okay, so I'm going to read what that stands for, because we're going to see the entity. This is what this entity does. So you're going to see this type of sin begin to emanate out in our culture because there's an entity behind it. You're activating the programming in the people, and you're bringing this entity front and center as a leader to begin to do what this entity does, okay? So Kamala Harris, she's Aphrodite Urania. It's this form of Aphrodite is the inspiration for all male homosexuality and desire, specifically geared toward adolescent males. So that type of love, that homosexual love, and I hate to even call it love, but that's what they call it. That type of homosexual love with adolescent males, males under 20, it's considered a spiritual kind of love. Spiritual because it's used in magic and their rituals and activation. And that's what Kamala Harris also represents from that entity, Aphrodite Urania. So then you have Gaga, Aphrodite Pandemos to the common man. That entity, it's the same entity, but this aspect manifesting itself through Gaga to the common man is associated with heterosexual desire and sexual promiscuity. And that type of love, the heterosexual love and promiscuity, is considered a physical love. It's considered lesser. It's considered subordinate to the homosexual adolescent puberty love, the heterosexual that Kamala has. So you're going to see the entities begin influencing our culture with that sexual perversion, because that's what she does. So you're going to see a lot more about the sexual perversion, sexual freedom, do whatever you want. There's a third form of Aphrodite, and it's the male form, and I'm just going to add that in there. I didn't see it in the inauguration, but then again, I didn't watch it, so some of you guys may have seen it. And the male form of Aphrodite is called Aphroditus, and he is depicted in a dress of a woman, but he has a beard. And you'll see him represented with the dress shown, lifted up, and to reveal an erect phallus. And so we may begin to see that rising up too soon. That's another form of the same entity, Aphrodite, with her sexual perversions, her sexual liberty being expressed in our culture. And that's a symbol they use in magic, that male twisted version. And so you remember I've said in previous teachings and videos that the stories of the gods, Aphrodite, in mythology, I've come to believe in my deprogramming that these entities really exist. They're not mythological, that they are fallen entities that have realms and dominion in various places, and they're worshipped by the cabal because they exist. But they use their stories in mythology to be a storyline in the programs of the mind control victim, because it's a form of worship for them. And so I want to tell you a little bit about Aphrodite's story. It's said that Aphrodite had no mother. She was born from sea foam in the ocean. And I want you to know that sea foam represents semen in programming and in the storylines here. So Aphrodite didn't come from a mother. She's just was birthed out of sea foam, semen on the ocean. And the storyline is that Cronus severed the phallus of Uranus and threw it into the sea. And the semen that came forth from that phallus birthed Aphrodite. The blood that came from severing the phallus created some other things. So you're going to find in the victims this type of ritual, this type of trauma tied to Aphrodite. So if you're deprogramming somebody, you're going to find memories. If you want to break off connections with Aphrodite, it's going to be memories that relate to sexual acts, and then the severing of a phallus, and the semen will have formed a part in the mind tied to Aphrodite and the survivor. Again, this is done. They play out in the ritual. Remember, the mind gets fragmented. They'll take one of the fragmented parts of the mind and say, we're going to give this part of the mind, this altar to Aphrodite, and they'll do a ritual that forms like her birth that involves a trauma of, sexual love, and the severing of the phallus and the semen and producing this part. She'll think she's birthed that way. They'll be using these traumas to make that type of trauma to make people obey. And just a little extra information is that Aphrodite's temple in antiquity, they would purify her temple by sacrificing a dove. Remember, dove and pearls are a symbol of Aphrodite. It's real common in magic potions of love that they'll sacrifice a dove and use the heart in that love potion. And some of you guys may remember in the Bible in Corinth, the town of Corinth, where our book Corinthians, 2 books Corinthians come from. Corinth was known back in the times of Paul as being the place where the most skilled and most expensive prostitutes were. Remember, you had prostitutes in the temple, and they used ritual prostitution for their magic. We're gonna be, as intercessors, battling a lot of sex magic, because Kamala and these people are bringing Aphrodite front and center. Our Lady Liberty is not who we think that she is. Remember, Gaga was wearing the dove symbol, another symbol of Aphrodite, but their peace is not our peace. The enemy, the cabal, the Illuminati, when they show the dove, it's the Antichrist dove. It's not biblical, godly, Christian peace. It's the peace that the Antichrist is going to bring. That's their nod. They want the peace to be able to do their rituals, to do their pedophilia, to do the Antichrist system wants the freedom to worship how they want to worship. That's their freedom. That's their peace. And I'm going to do a part 2, but I need to keep these videos short because I have a hard time uploading them. But that's just the beginning of what they're activating. We're going to need to see what happens at the Super Bowl halftime show, beginning to see in the next few days what pops up in level 2 comms on the news and commercials and the Hollywood, which is tier 2 comms, to see more details of what it's going to look like and what's going to be played out with the purple. So I'm going to stop here. I'll come back with a part 2 to this, and I'll see you there.